Now I'm going to add a new elements to the list. How can I add the new elements to the list? We saw how can we change it. We saw how can we and change it and modify the items. We saw how can I delete from the list. How about if I want to add to it? Is there a way to do it? Yes, there is another method that will help me to add more elements to my list. This method calls append. Okay, it calls append. How can I use it? Well, based on my list over here, list 2, it has only 300. If I want to add to it another item, again, append is a method. And remember this, when it's a method, you have to say the object name, which is in this case my list, dot append, which is the method. And between parentheses, whatever you want to append the value. Let's assume I'm going to append a string, and this string is going to be Python. Now, Python is added to the end of my list. So let me go ahead and see what is in my list 2. It has 2 items, 300 and Python. And every time you add an element, the element or the item is going to be added to the end of the list. Okay, let me go ahead and add another one. I'm going to say append, and between parentheses I'm going to say 5.5. And now I'm going to say show me what's in this list. It's going to give me 3 items. So you notice here, every time I append a value, it's going to go to the end of my list. Okay. Here is some basic methods and functions that we can use. We saw how can we use the length. If I have 2 lists, I want to add them together, I simply can use the plus sign. There is another method that I can use, which calls the min, or shorts for minimum. This one will find the element in the list with the smallest value. Okay, if I have numbers, it's going to find the smallest number I have on my list. If I have strings, it's going to find me the smallest string. It's going to be based on the alphabetic order. Same thing with the max. It's going to go and find out what is the max. You notice over here when I call the min and the max, I pass to it the name of my list. Okay, I pass to it the name of my list. We also have a function that calls sum. Sum will find the sum of all elements of the list, but the sum has to be with all numbers. Okay, the list has to be all numbers. Okay, and then we also have another method calls for the index. So when I use this method, again, it's a method, my object name dot the method which is index, and here the value. It's going to return back to you where's that value, what is the index of that value. Okay, let me go back here again. I'm going to say list2 dot index, and between parentheses 5.5. It gave me the index where 5.5 is located. Okay, if the number or if the value is not located, let's go ahead here. I'm going to repeat this one over here, but instead of 5.5, I'm going to say 5, which is not in my list. Is going to tell me 5 is not in list, which is in this case is error. Okay. Also, we have another method called count. Count is going to count the number of occurrence of the value that you want to look for. Okay. So again, my list name dot count, and here I can put the value, and then it's going to return to you how many times this value or this item appeared in your list. Okay. We're going to use more practice. We're going to see more of that later on in this course. Okay. Again, the method length, we saw that before. It returns the number of elements that we have in the list, and we use that this function with the list that we saw before. Again, the good thing about sequences, when you work with them in Python, they have a lot of things in common. Okay, you will see there's a lot of things in common, like for example the length, we use it in the strings and in the lists. They work the same way. We saw how can we access to each item using the indexes. We also saw how can we slice them using the same thing using the colon. Okay, this is an example for the max, and you can pause the video and then you can try it. I have here 2 lists, list 1 and list 2. This is for list 1 and this is for list 2, and then I said find out the maximum value. It's going to return to you, if you do it for number, for example the number is going to return to you number 700. Okay, and the same thing for the minimum. Okay, the count also, here's an example. You can pause the slides or pause the video and try these slides. It's going to give you the count. I can try it here for you. I can say, for example, give me the count of my list. I'm going to find out how many items I have in this value using the count function or the counts method. I'm going to say list underscore 2 dot count, and here I'm going to say 300. It told me it's only one time. Okay, there's only one 300 in my list. Here's again, there's a list of items, the list of methods that we can use. Again, we're gonna go through them later on in more details in another chapter, but here are just the basics. For example, this list, this method over here, it calls reverse. This one's gonna reverse the objects that you have in the list. Okay, so it's gonna put them in a reverse order. So if I go, for example, say list underscore 2 dot reverse, and it doesn't take anything, and then I say show me what is list 2, it's going to show me the list reversed. But this method is going to reverse the list permanently. That's it, done. So 5.5 is going to be always at index 0. 300 is going to be always at index 2. Okay, and we also have another method that will sort the items that you have. So if you have a list of numbers or of strings, it's going to sort them and change the order of the items. Extend. It's another method called extend. Extend basically, if I want to have two lists, okay, and I want to put them together, with the append I cannot do it. Append, it adds one item at a time and it's going to add it at the end. But if I have two lists, I want to put them all together, I can use the extend. So for example, I have list 2, as you saw it over there. I'm going to say, let's assume I have list called list 3, and this list 3 is going to be equal to 1, 2, 3. And here, if I say, for example, I want to extend list underscore 2, I want to extend it. Between parentheses, I add the list I want to extend it to. I'm going to add it to, okay? So in my example, list 3, and now I'm going to say, show me what's in list 2. It gave me the two lists together combined. So list 2 right now changed permanently, okay? Whatever, somebody might ask what happened to list 3. List 3 did not change, as is, okay? Pause the video also and try to practice that. Okay, index. We saw that the index, the method index, will return the lowest index of the object. So that being said, if I have a list, I have the list over here. Let's assume I'm going to create a list over here, and I'm going to say, for example, list 2 dot append. What I'm going to append to it, 5.5. Okay, now I'm going to say list 2 dot index between parentheses 5.5. It returned to me 0. Wow, okay, well I have two 5.5 in my list. Okay, I have this one and the one I just appended over here, which was at the end. Let me show you that. I have two 5.5. When you use the method index, it's going to go from the left all the way to the end, from the beginning to the end. First time it finds the value you're looking for, it's going to return the index for that, and then it's going to stop. Okay, then it's going to stop. So in my example, it went to the beginning, found 5.5, it returned the 0, and they said, like, that's it, I found it as index 0. What about this one, which is the last item? Index is not going to find it for you. Okay,